Hey guys, welcome back to another video with Thunk Tank. This is going to be a long one. So this is our KvK, uh, this last one that just passed over the weekend, and it was pretty interesting. I try to make it as small as possible. It's still a whopping like over 40-minute video, but I'll try to cover as much as I can even after editing it. My audio in the game got messed up. There's a lot of scratching, and then, when cutting it up, it didn't sound as good as I thought it would. So I already edited the video and I'm just gonna talk over it. But as you can kind of see our layout, we always tend to use a kind of filler strategy as far as the Black Forest is concerned, where we'll put low castles in, we'll teleport them in, farms, whatever, into the Black Forest with this kind of one tile spacing to take up as much room as possible around Avalon. And this is obviously to prevent or increase the time rather it takes for enemies that come in to march on Avalon. So the first KvK we had, so when the lineup is just announced and you don't know who you're up against, it's really good to have as much participation on this as possible because you have no clue who you're up against. You don't know what they're like. So this isn't our first one. This is our second one. The first one we were successfully able to take our enemy throne, the enemy thrones, one of them at least. But this one we're a bit more confident with, obviously, with our matchup. So what I mean by that is when we start out on the first day of KvK, when all the kingdoms reset as far as the matchups are concerned, we approach it with kind of like a scenario 1, 2, or 3 mindset. So scenario 1 would be up against overpowered players, overpowered kingdom. Scenario 2 is evenly matched. Scenario 3 is underpowered. So while we're setting up and while KvK is happening, we're scouting out these other kingdoms. We're checking them out to see how they're playing, looking for signs, that there might be infighting amongst the, inside that kingdom. Because if there is infighting, which we saw in k38 the first time we're up against them, it's normally a pretty good sign that they're not going to have as much support going in, and they'll have fewer people participating in the KvK. So this is really important because if you can unify your kingdom and go in on a non-unified kingdom, you'll outmatch them, you'll outclass them just because you have more people backing you up and a higher chance of more high-level people on your side versus them, which it may be 1 or 2 alliances that are teaming up together. I think we had 4 or 5 for our KvK, on our kingdom rather. So here we're checking out k163. Now the other thing we do right off the bat is we start spying on other kingdoms. So we'll either create accounts in their kingdoms, we'll start talking to the other members of that kingdom, trying to find out what the dealio is, who are the strong players. Right now we're looking at k163, and we've spent about a week in their kingdom amongst different alliances, just chatting to people and watching how things happen. And XD1 here is normally the guys that hold the throne here, but it looks like they've joined KOE, which I don't think has ever happened before. But interesting, later on, I think they tried to provoke us into attacking 163, but we'll see that later. The one guy that we need to be careful of isn't part of XD1. His name is Saint Long, and while I was there, he ended up spending just recently over $7,000 on his account. So right off the bat, that he's going to be trouble. And we already decided if he comes to attack, then we're pulling out, because if either myself or Angry Lettuce, who's the other strong guy in our kingdom, can't handle him, then there's no way the other guys are going to be able to stand up against him. So now with Deathseeker release, we're a bit worried that could be a possibility. So here we are deciding to finally make the jump. This is, I think, an hour into the KvK, and normally, ideally, we should have gone in earlier because we know that we could have probably taken him, but we didn't have as many people show up as we were hoping. So it was a smaller turnout than our last KvK. Our last KvK was a huge turnout. Like, we were almost able to fill up 2 squares around k38's throne, as well as holding our own. But this time we're just jumping in on it. We're pretty confident with the stats we saw. We're up against last KvK. So here I'm just trying to do a bit of clustering. Formation can be important when you consider that you want to be able to reinforce your allies as fast as possible. It's good to be close. So, not going on the other side of Avalon unless you're, in a group over there. And yeah, so it's always good to, I think port and formation. So just scouting up the towers now, looking at what we're up against. Interesting to see that, these guys send mainly their best. I think that's not a good strategy, because if he takes a hit, you're losing everything. And while that might work, if you don't have a lot of troops or a lot of people supporting you in a KvK, it's also setting yourself up pretty big. So the next day after this, I had work. I had daylight savings as well. So I didn't have much time to play this KvK. I tried to squeeze in a couple hours, and I ended up missing, which you'll see later, the invasion of k163 into k38 to take it away from us, which was unfortunate. But Long was leading that up, and yeah, I mean, when I got on, it was like Long was already there, like all of k163 was there. Long was pretty much the only person unshielded and just soloing everything. And when you see that happening, you're just like, all right, you gotta know when to call it. There's no point in losing troops. And don't mind people that are like, oh, well, you didn't try hard enough, because they're not in your position. They haven't invested as much time into your account as you have, so you got to be ultimate decider on that. Always, before you go into KvK, make sure that you have all your boosts on, all your troop marches saved. You don't want to be having to mess around with that stuff in the middle of KvK. And troop boost would include, attack, defense buffs, anti-scout, march capacity, and then, depending on what kind of relics you like using. I don't do the relic swapping. I find that takes too much time. So I always rock Dragon Blade. Some people like to use the Dragon Idol or swap between Crown of Command to increase march capacity, and then switch to the sword as soon as it lands. So here we've successfully taken our first tower. They ended up recalling right away. I think they remember what happened last time. And this is a strategy in itself. It's a bit of cat and mouse. But it's not helpful if you are so far away from the city center. And this is one of the cons of setting up around the outside of your kingdom, is that the march times take forever to land. So we're a lot closer. We don't even have to hold, like, all we have to do is basically put in a march or two into each building, and then if they try to rally it, which would be the only way they could take it, we can quickly move things around. All right, so here you can see one of the guys from K38 is coming into attack. He teleported in right away and hit Seek and Destroy. So just having a look at his power, and then the next thing I'm going to do, and highly recommend people doing, is running fake rallies. Fake rallies are a really important way to see if there are any reinforcements in your target, because you don't want to hit somebody. And I'm laughing because you'll see why later on, when there's a lot of reinforcements in the castle, because obviously a higher chance that you'll lose. So the other thing I asked just then before was to see some reports. So to see reports, always share reports if you're getting hit. So people need to see the stats of other people. They need to know what they're up against. So don't hold reports to yourself, even if you take a hit. Don't be embarrassed. Share it, because you'll help the team out. The other thing that's really important is, prior to KvK, is Firelands. So Firelands are really important because I use it as a method to basically test out my setup. I'll start soloing all sorts of people to see how I match up against them, like what is my maximum kill. And I hadn't done that before this one because of prestige banners coming out. I wanted to get as much prestige as I could possibly. All right, so here, both Billy and I had the same idea, so we've run fake rallies on Starscream. We saw that there's no reinforcements. I'm still waiting on the reports to come up so I can see his stats and gauge whether or not I should hit him. And that should be coming up soon. Here we go. So looking at Starscream, comparing him to mine, yeah, it looks like he is pretty weak. I'm not on the left, by the way. That's somebody else's report. But yeah, I should be able to take him, no problem. So here we're just keeping an eye on him. So he's just positioned himself on the other side of the map. And right here, when you see someone doing this, Jake, I know for a fact he doesn't have that many troops, and he just sent out a massive amount of troops. And right as I'm writing this, like, shield up, man. If you're going to reinforce people, make sure you have a shield on. No need to have no shield. And look what happens as soon as I say that. Bang, this guy shows up. So I try to get there as fast as possible, but yeah, I wasn't fast enough. I think he was already hit by the time I wasted all my speed ups to get there. And you'll see me wasting a lot of gold in this matchup. I never play like this. Normally I have, I'll save up a couple weeks for a speed up pack and I'll have way more speed ups. But because I had so much gold and this is my last KvK, I'm planning on making, I wanted to make this kind of a bit of more of a show than normal. And I also didn't have much time either. So I've decided that I'm going to hit this guy. I should have just hit him. But again, I didn't know what kind of, if he had any reinforcements on. I know I can take 50 million. I've hit people with 50 million in the past. As soon as I show up, he shields. So he either remembers the last time we came to k38, or he's just playing it safe, which was a smart idea on his part. So bingo, I see Starscream here sending a march out. Now when someone sends a march out, you can basically, if you remember their power, you can basically tell yourself, okay, well, that's whatever his power is minus 15 or 14 million, because that's how much power is normally in a full march. So I don't even hesitate. I know he has got no reinforcements. I've seen his stats, and voila, done. So that was probably a double whammy, because it looks like he also hit another castle. So it looks like he both lost his march as well as the remaining troops in his castle. So that looked like a double hit there. So again, Firelands is a great way to kind of boost your confidence going into a KvK, just so you know where you're at stat wise. Because if you don't know where you're at or what you can do, then you're probably not going to perform as well as you should in KvK. So you'll see, yeah, you guys will see me speeding up my, yeah, so that was a pretty decent hit. I just didn't have a chance. But you'll see me speeding up my marches. Like I said, I don't play like this outside of KvK. It's just these slow, what's it called? These slow march times due to the Black Forest. So our basic strategy right now is I'm playing safety. I'm trying to help people out as much as possible. It doesn't help when people, we probably could have taken this march, but by the time my march got there, he'd already ported somewhere else. So I just wasted all that for nothing. Now this is an interesting point here, because you'll see his troops are still going out. And then he notices that his target has, I'm talking about Andy here. So right here, see, he's sending out 2 marches. Now he had, I believe, 70 million. So you could probably, right now, if I hadn't been thinking about it, but I could have hit him easily and survived. So he's sending out 70 million, he had 70 million, he sent out 2 marches. You can assume that's 25 million off. That puts him around 50 million power. And yeah, I'm confident I could have probably one-shot him at this point right here where he had 2 marchers out coming back. But this is something interesting too. So this Braus is scouting someone right now, this guy from k163. Now you don't ever do this unless you're trying to start crap with people. So with what's happening over in k163, I believe he's trying to ruse us into attacking 163 because he's not happy they don't have the throne over there at the moment. That's the only reason why I could think of someone doing that. Especially if you're just going to shield right away and not scout anybody. You're just, your presence, you're just trying to annoy people. And sometimes that could work as a strategy. It definitely worked on us in the past, where somebody from our kingdom that was unhappy about us being on the throne went somewhere else. And yeah, so here I just did a fake rally again on my target, and I wish I had just gone for it because I'm pretty confident in hindsight, 2020, that I could have soloed him. So at this point, Angry's going around. He's running rallies on all the towers, and he's capturing. We're leaving people in each of the towers, and that's causing damage to the people inside the throne. And I'm just going around trying to keep an eye on people, making sure that we're not getting picked off too much. But this Andy guy was pretty annoying. He ends up shielding later on because Angry decides to chase him down, and he just keeps running away and then puts a shield on. But a lot of these guys coming in don't have any reinforcements, which is kind of silly. I think there's another guy that shows up here shortly. All right, so I'm also keeping an eye out for our guys. I'm looking at who's going to be, who's a potential target, who needs to be looked after, because the potential targets will be the ones that are most likely to get hit. So these are the ones that are, weaker in troop numbers, no reinforcements. Excuse me, weaker in power, no reinforcements. And yeah. So just maintaining constant communication. I'm looking for battle reports at the moment on Andy. So, again, I can gauge, how successful I'll be. So Pinky's just showed up with her 26, but, 20, I think she's got about 30 or 40 million power, and that's, you got to be careful this day and age going into anywhere with 34 million power, because you're likely to get a one shot. So trying to rally Andy. Now, high chances if you rally someone, it's not going to work out, because they'll just teleport somewhere unless you can lock them down, or they don't have anything else, or unless they're in a building they don't want to leave. That's the only time you can really get someone with a rally in the Black Forest. Otherwise, they'll just teleport out. So here's an opportunity for me to get some stats on Andy. So I decided to send some cavalry in to get a battle report, a number I'm comfortable with losing. I don't know how much he's sending. And yeah, getting these numbers is going to help me, decide whether or not I should try to solo Andy. But running a rally on him is not going to work at this point. He doesn't have any troops in any of the buildings, and like I said, if he needs to, he can just bounce somewhere else as soon as the rally's launched, and that's a huge inconvenience for us, because as soon as you launch a rally, it's just a lot of time that your main march is spending not ready to attack someone, either in transit to the rally or waiting in the rally, or going from the rally to the target, and then just to have that target leave, that's 20 minutes of time right there. So I would recommend avoiding rallying somebody that's not engaged in the buildings. Instead, look to reinforce to take out his troops. So here we go. He only sent one troop in. All right, and looking at this, I should have been like, okay, I can handle this guy, no problem, and just gone for it, especially here, with the, so here we go. Now he's getting reinforcements. This might have made things a bit trickier. I'm not sure if I could, I don't know, but you'll see what I do in the future, which would have been way harder than just soloing this guy now. But it did have an interesting effect. So I think coming up here, we got this guy that showed up, and so he's looking to I guess kill some of my troops. And the other thing I wanted to mention is KvK is kind of like a chess game. When people are evenly matched or whatever, this game becomes about how do I get somebody to move a march out, or send a march out, or reinforce somebody somewhere else, or whatever. You're trying to get people to move around. And so here, with him sending a march out, I'm confident. I'm going in, and I'm going to hit him, because I know that he's got like 10 million, 20 million outside of his castle right now. So his effective power is not that great. On top of that, his dragon's not in. So, yeah, at this point, I'm like, all right, well, I know he's got no reinforcements. I know what his stats were like. I'm going to go for it. And as always, because of the Black Forest thing, you know, I just decide just gonna speed it up, and boom, that's what happens. So yeah, that was a pretty easy hit to see coming. Right now, just waiting for my troops to come back. Look, things are looking pretty good at this point. They only have a couple people they're trying to pick off our weak guys. So I think at this point we're getting our weak guys to kind of reinforce more than um, go for buildings and stuff like that. So with that happening, then I mean, remember you gotta, like I said in the other video earlier on, you gotta be careful with who's partaking in building capturing if they're weak, and by weak I mean today weak is probably 40 million, 30 million area. You got to be careful because if they're sending a full march, that's 10 million off. So suddenly, if they're 30 or 40, that goes down to 20 or 30 million in their actual castle. And if they get hit at the castle, suddenly, all those troops come flying out of the tower, and off they go, bags packed, off to wherever they came from. And your tower is now at a disadvantage; it's weaker. So we just took throne there. We have held it down, which is great. I think Lettuce is trying to get this guy, and he could too. Lettuce would have easily been able to solo this dude if he maybe had sped up the marches and stuff. But yeah, the other bummer here is that we don't have a great turnout. We had a lot of people asleep. KvK is an odd time for us, so we don't have as much people as we'd like on. We only had, I think, 3 of our 30s there. I think there was just Wicked, myself, and Angry. Last time I think we had about 7 or 8 of our 30s holding down the throne. So yeah, the other thing I'm doing here is just keeping an eye out. Like, you got to be looking around, for new incoming targets all the time. And as we'll see, there we go. So Angry got him to shield finally, which it's looking like, this is pretty much on lockdown at this point. And no more resistance from K38. And I'm wrong, of course. Somebody else decides to show up, and I think you guys will appreciate the insanity in some of these decisions I make. So here I'm just porting next to Sushi because for me Sushi looks like he's probably a good target to take out. And at this point, Moon, who I guess was holding down the towers and everything, decides to port in and, cause a bit of grief for us. So, considering where I was and what's going on, I'm just like, well, I have to log off in about 30 minutes, and if I wake up, this is probably going to be over. But I just kind of wanted to get in, one last hit. So, I have a look there at everything, and I'm like, all right, guys, well, I'm heading off, so I'll just do what I can for you guys right now. And I know full well that Moon has max reinforcements, has a lot of troops. I think 100 million troops, and like within reinforcement-wise, I think there was like 3 or 4 people reinforcing him. So Moon. So Lettuce just hit Moon, and I'm just like, screw this, I'll do it as well. And you see other people doing it. So I load up, and then I think I'm like, all right, here we go. Yeah, this is it. Off you go, boys. Make me proud. And a bit of a YOLO. I think I yelled YOLO when I was doing this. So, bang. Pretty much lost the entire march. 15 million. But, yeah, he's gone down heaps as well. So, boom, shield. There we go. Yeah, that was a big save on Life Preserver right there. Normally, if I hadn't had Life Preserver, that would have been pretty much entire losses. But I think Angry and I just decided, screw it. And, we have the extra troops. Well, I don't, clearly. But, so I guess the moon was just like, well, I'm not going to go up against that. That's too crazy. And decided to shield. So I'm just teleporting here. So the other thing to remember is that the other thing to remember here is that when you port, your troops come right back. So it's basically like an instant recall if you can port. So at this point, yeah, at this point we've pretty much decided, well, this is over. And now that we got their big guy to shield, they don't want to go. He doesn't want to go up against uh, a bunch of crazy asses that are just going to throw troops for no reason. And the other thing they're probably thinking about right now is like, well, K38, when we went in there, we knew that K38 was somewhat divided. And with that being said, KvK is just a certain period of time, right? Like it only happens for about 8 hours, and then you're stuck with the rest of the kingdom again. So a lot of people put consideration into, well, what's going to happen after KvK? Like, am I going to be able to defend my alliance from our enemies? If there's a war going on, and that could have probably weighed in on Moon's mind there. So, yeah, at this point also it looks like we get ranks. So we do ranking for our KvK. So we decided, who gets the crown. Well, sorry, I'm not sure who gets the crown anymore. I used to think that it was based on performance in combat. Was the way we handed it out. But we do organize the packs, I guess, like that. So if you win throne, to decide who gets packs and who doesn't, we count up all the kills. So VN Bebe was basically counting up all the kills from the battle report she saw, and she was letting us know what our ranking was, which is a huge task. So hats off to her for deciding to do that. Here I'm just spending a ridiculous amount of gold on healing up. I thought I'd just leave this in there. So yeah, I mean that was basically the end of our KvK, or so I thought. This whole time we also have people spying on the other kingdoms to let us know what's going on. And one of our guys, King Blood Demon, was spying on k163, and suddenly I got a heads up, that things weren't looking good for us if they decide to come over here. And you'll see that in a second. So we, like other people, use line to do some out of line some communication. So here we basically, he gave me a heads up that something was going on. So I jump out of the game real quick. And this is what I see. So yeah, so we see this. That's not good news. I then decide to head over to the other kingdom to check this out. And yeah, so this is definitely cause for concern. We go to the other kingdom to check this out, just to see how much of Death Seekers he's built. If it's one piece, maybe, but if it's two pieces, we'll probably just have to call it. So, yeah, this is why it's really important to have people, doing intel for you during KvK, because a lot of this game is about information and just knowing stuff. So, we got Armor Fury here, which is an interesting choice for armor. Warmongers, I think Ring of Glory, and then, yeah, that's definitely Death Seekers. So you see this, and I'm like, oh man, I mean, it could have been one of the other pieces, but he got the sword, and right then and there, that his attack and his damage is just going to be insane. So what ends up happening, I don't capture it, but basically, yeah, they did come over to k163. I didn't have time to get record going, but I threw my troops into somebody who was hitting, and it was basically just me versus Long, and you can see right there I pretty much lost everything, and he, you know, he only lost 30k. So the other thing is that k163 also has other players that, you know, have a large amount of damage and stuff. You know, close to what me and to Lettuce and I have. So, you know, at this point we just got to call it. We got our throne. Maybe had we been faster, you know, on heading over there, we could have taken k38, just because, you know, the k163 guys were banking on the fact that there was an hour delay, which is what we actually banked on when we went over to k38 the first time, and said, well, you know, we can take our throne and then we can go over in the last hour and take k38 away from k68. So all things to consider there. So yeah, guys, quickly mention that there is now an increased drop rate on dragons, dropping things like amber, amethyst, and so on. So up to ×4, which is amazing. And also, just wanted to mention again, it's confirmed that Lucky Shot is dropping Valor Gemstones. The drop rate's quite high, so one of our guys was able to get 4 or 5 Valor Gemstones with 4 Lucky Shot packs. So it seems like a good way to get it. Honestly, better than the drop rate for the Valor Gemstone packs. Just keep that in mind, guys. Well, I hope that was an interesting video, guys. I'm going to wrap it up there. Coming up, I know I promised it, it is on the way. I'm still working on some of the dialogue for this issue of Dying Kingdoms and King of Avalon. So I've probably got one more. I had a lot of fun making this. So I'll make one more video. We're going to have a big kill event coming up. We've all agreed, just because I think things are getting kind of stale in the kingdom. So we're going to have a pretty big war. I'll put up what I can. And yeah, thanks a bunch for tuning in, letting me know what you guys have thought about the other videos. That means a lot that you guys are engaged. And I look forward to making more videos here shortly. I won't be around for long, as I said. So, you know, maybe 2, 3, 4 videos tops coming up. But I hope you enjoy them. And please feel free to comment on these, critique them, critique why I did things. Obviously, just keep in mind that, like I said, I had a lot of gold. I'm not going to be playing for much longer, so I'll play it a little bit crazier than I would normally have. I normally play pretty cautiously, but yeah, I guess what I'm showing you is not how I play, and I just want you to keep that in mind. All right, guys, take it easy, and I'll see you in the future videos.